Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Planet Football. We're here to break down all the biggest and most important stories happening in the football world. Today we'll be speaking with Bayern Munich's David Alaba, as well as broadcaster Luis Omar Tapia. TUDN. I'm Grant Wall, and sitting across from me is my wonderful co-host, Luis Miguel. My friend. You excited to get this thing going?
I am excited. We're getting closer and closer to 100 eps, man.
88 is the one we're on right now.
I love it.
On Monday, Manchester United hosts Arsenal. Which team are you most concerned about and why?
Manchester United. It's not a difficult question. I mean, listen, first we have to look at the table itself, right? Arsenal is, yes, it's not perfect. I mean, it struggled against Aston Villa. It managed to just, get that win even with 10 men, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang with that fantastic free kick. But, Unai Emery is figuring it out. I'll tell you one thing, the squad understands the identity of Arsenal better than what's going on with Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Obviously, the biggest talking point is the fact that, the striking force is suffering. Marcus Rashford is out, presumably against Arsenal due to that injury that happened before. Apparently, Anthony Martial should be fit. We don't know that yet. But regardless of all that, though, Grant, I don't yet know the identity of Manchester United. I watch Man U against West Ham. I've seen every game, if not definitely, a big chunk of it from a highlights perspective. And everything that I see about this Manchester United, even all the way back since after that famous win at PSG, I'm still trying to figure out who Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Manchester United is. And that's what my worry is. And it's no longer anymore a situation where it's like, ooh, Old Trafford this weekend, better watch out. That fear factor is long gone. You can go to Old Trafford and you can try and get something, and I think that will happen on Monday, and I see Arsenal winning this, to be honest.
That's interesting. I look at these fan bases, Man United and Arsenal, as two of the biggest complaining fan bases out there.
Yeah.
And
I'll say Arsenal wins, but yeah.
And actually maybe Arsenal nudges them out, United, just because I think they make something into a crisis very quickly.
Correct.
Out there. And so they're doing that again with Unai Emery, but obviously United fans are really upset with the way things are going too. It's pretty clear at this point when you look at Solskjaer's winning percentage since he got the full job, pretty poor compared to before that. And, getting past PSG, surprisingly, in Champions League was sort of what sealed it for him. And I think even at the time we talked about, I don't know if that's a good idea. Maybe you should wait till the end of the season on this. Why would they, why not do that? Because it's not like other clubs were pushing to hire Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But here we are. I also remember in 2017, I was writing my book, and I had a whole chapter about the director of football position and how ridiculous it was that Manchester United and a lot of other clubs, but I specified Man United, didn't have a technical director, sporting director position in addition to the manager. And there's a real reason for that, because these jobs are so complicated, so many demands, that this can't be like the days of Sir Alex Ferguson when he could do both roles and do them really well. That can't happen. But here we are 2 years later, and Man United still doesn't have a sporting director, and they just are talking about this. And it's a real problem, I think, in terms of the inertia there that's taken place. And they just need to get the technical director hired, and that person needs to develop a philosophy for how Man United wants to play, and they need to sign players and coaches based on that. But they've gotten this completely wrong. And so I look at where they are. We could have predicted they'd be in this position, talking about players they now need to supposedly buy in January when they should have done it last summer and the summer before that. And it's got to be really frustrating. I'm not a United fan personally, but I'm getting frustrated just talking about it.
No, it's ridiculous. I mean, and there's a lot of talent there, and I'm with you. I mean, listen, it's not just about what's going to happen on Monday, but the future. The future. If I was, Ed Woodward and co, I will do everything I can to try and get Edwin van der Sar from Ajax. I don't know if he would ever be, persuaded, but he is a Manchester United legend, and, that would be a challenge for him and an appealing one at that. But there is a lot wrong with Man U, and I'm with you. It's very frustrating. Moving on Monday, FIFA had its annual awards gala in Milan, and Megan Rapinoe and Lionel Messi won the awards for Women's and Men's World Player of the Year. Grant, if you had to pick one award that you would have given to someone else, which one would it have been?
Well, it's interesting because I was actually the U.S. journalist voter for the first time this year on the men's side. I voted Messi 1, Van
Correct.
Dijk 2, and got that right. And I had Jurgen Klopp 1 and Guardiola 2 on the coach's side. That's what it ended up being. The one award I would change would be the Fair Play Award that was given to our friends at Leeds United and Marcelo Bielsa. And it's not because it wasn't a legit thing that he did that ended up getting them the award. I mean, the idea of letting an opposing team that just score on you after you had felt like you unfairly scored on them, that's a cool gesture. But there's sort of a disqualifying factor here for Bielsa. This guy had Spygate last season.
Weeks later after that very situation.
Where he literally admitted that all season long he'd been sending an assistant to spy on opposing teams during their practices, their closed practices. That's crazy.
Yeah, listen, and don't get me wrong. I actually don't see that much of a bigger deal in that in terms of the overall scheme, but don't give the guy an award for fair play. I mean, I think they should do what they do in the NFL. I mean, the NFL has its own issues, but one thing that I like is that they really, celebrate one player who's done a lot for the community. I think that could be a good. You need to revamp this whole thing first of all. Like, you need to know your audience. The soccer fan is not interested in magic flying artists in the air. They want a little, I would do more like a Nickelodeon kind of Teen Choice Award situation here because nobody's watching this. I mean, it is great to see all these players that you watch throughout the season, but at some point, it's just such a bore fest. I would just have Matteo Messi go on stage and just wreck everything.
I like your ideas. Forward those to FIFA. I think they should use the star power at this event to a more interesting,
Yes.
positive, end result.
You've got all those stars in one setting on one night. Come on.
Right.
Think a little more.
I'm with you on that. Moving on, the English League Cup had its first round of games for the big clubs midweek. But here's a question. With the news that France is discontinuing its second knockout tournament of the season, do you think the League Cup, England's second knockout tournament after the FA Cup, should continue to exist?
It's a really good question, actually, because I do battle with this. Because on one side, we need to think about lower tier clubs who do get, the financial, look at Colchester, for example. They benefited tremendously of not just beating Tottenham, but now moving into the next round and seeing what can be done in terms of ticket sales. But on the other side, nobody cares about the Carabao Cup, especially like from a marketing perspective. And if you're like, a Premier League fan, I think to me the answer would be, why don't you just make this Championship and below? Just forget about the Premier League. The Championship has a lot of quality. It's well known globally. That could be your top league and then everything below. And, with that, at least you have the financial benefits from the lower clubs and you still have a competition where these teams, can benefit from. I don't know if I would have the Premier League sides on it, but it is a good question because obviously people actually are devaluing the FA Cup. What do you think they're thinking about the Carabao Cup in this perspective?
I have the hardest time explaining what the League Cup, the Carabao Cup, is to new soccer fans in America because what do you say about it? Like, it's the knockout tournament? Well, it's not the knockout tournament. It's sort of the NIT of knockout tournaments. Do the Premier League clubs take it seriously? Well, not really. They don't usually put their best players out there. So what is it? I just don't get it.
And it's combusting the schedule, right? So.
Right. And so, like, too many games are being played as it is, for Premier League teams. I think your idea to make a Championship and below would be an improvement on the current situation. But honestly, I want it to go away.
Just nix it.
Bye.
Listen, then that would give more importance to the FA Cup maybe. Now because you have another tournament.
Yeah.
Moving on, if you had to pick one MLS team, Grant, in each conference that you think could make a surprise run in the MLS playoffs, which is happening very soon, who would it be and why?
Well, now that we know the LA Galaxy are actually going to make the playoffs, after kind of wondering about that for a while, I think they're capable of winning the whole thing. When this team is at its best, which is usually against its crosstown rival LAFC, it's capable of beating anybody. And obviously you've got Ibrahimovic when they're defending better and when there's more players on the field that are doing good things than Ibrahimovic, which is happening a lot more lately with Christian Pavone out there. I think the LA Galaxy could actually go the whole way. And I think if they end up playing LAFC in the playoffs, that is going to be one heavyweight prize fight that I couldn't wait to see.
El Tráfico with all caps.
Oh, my goodness.
What about the East?
In the East, Toronto. I look at Toronto, and they're a team that's really underperformed at times this year, and they did go out in the final of the Canadian Championship this week against Montreal, but they have a lot of players on their team who know how to deal with the postseason, who have that experience, and when they're at their ceiling, also can pretty much beat anybody. They gave LAFC a really hard time the other day on the road. So if I'm going to pick a team from sort of the lower half of the playoff-bound teams in the East and West, those are the two teams I would pick.
Yeah, I'll keep this short. I'll stick. Toronto is my answer on the East for sure. I mean, listen, all bets are off once the playoffs come in, I think, like specifically in MLS. I think that given the nature of how it takes to get to the playoffs in the first place, the moment you are in postseason mode, then anything can happen. And Toronto, like you said, I think has the experience, understands not just the players, but also, the audience, the fans, the stadium, the environment. They know what it's like to make it all the way to the top, to make it all the way to MLS Cup. So Toronto, regardless whether they're 6 or 1, they're still always to be reckoned with. And on the other side, they're not there yet. But if San Jose Earthquakes makes it, I am such on the bandwagon feel of Matias Almeida and what he gives in the playoffs. It's absolutely incredible. We have seen it throughout his entire career. He just has this gift of amping his squad in specific postseason situations. We've already discussed about how ridiculous it is for 7 teams to make it to the playoffs. If you don't make it, it's kind of a joke. But let's remember, San Jose Earthquakes were the worst team in the league last year. And even though they lost to the Union this midweek, they're just 1 point behind trying to make it to the playoffs. If they do make it, Matias Almeida all the way, baby. They can do it.
Good stuff, my friend. Moving on, Boca Juniors and River Plate are set to meet again in the semifinals of the Copa Libertadores, with the first leg happening this Tuesday. There was a lot that happened last year with this one, my man. What are your thoughts on another Superclásico in Libertadores?
I mean, we can state the obvious, right? The atmosphere is going to be ridiculous. The environment, I mean, it's all about safety, hoping that we're not going to see, some of the scenes that we saw last, time around. But this is Boca Juniors and River Plate, and this is going to be 2 teams that are going to go at each other no matter what. I'll tell you something, the weather forecast right now, it's saying for rain. So we'll see you in that situation. But in terms of where these teams are right now, River Plate is 10th right now. I mean, it's the beginning, it's early-ish on in the season, but they are 10th. Gallardo's squad is not necessarily finding its right balance, specifically after Pity Martinez leaving. Juan Fernando Quintero, who I just think so highly of, he's still recuperating from a really serious injury. He couldn't go to Copa America because of it. Apparently, he might be ready for the return leg. We'll see if that happens. On the other side, Boca Juniors is flying, hasn't lost a game yet. They've really done very well in the transfer market. Alexis McAllister is a player that's coming on loan from Brighton. He's doing well. There's a kid they have, 19-year-old Jan Hurtado, who's tremendous. So they have a nicely balanced squad. So if you're asking me, who do I think is going to overrule this one? I think also because of what happened last year, Boca Juniors will take it in the course of 2 legs. But you never know again in this Superclásico. But in terms of where these squads both are right now, Boca Juniors takes the cake for me.
I also think for Argentine football, it's important that these 2 games take place and that there aren't any concerns like what we saw last year, which was absolutely disgraceful and really left a global stain on Argentine soccer. For the first time, you had Boca and River playing in the Libertadores final, and then they ended up having to play the second leg in Madrid, of all places. So this is an opportunity to show we're getting our act together and know how to do this right. I hope the fans cooperate. I hope security works. I hope people get this done, because I care a lot about Argentine soccer, and it's just something that this will help put things right if it's about the soccer itself. Interestingly, for the final, it's going to be the first one-off final, and it's going to be in Santiago, Chile, so you don't have to worry about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, one-off is good, but you're right. I think it's a really good point. Time to rewrite the script, so to speak.
Joining us now is David Alaba of Bayern Munich, which takes on Paderborn this Saturday. David, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
David, you have missed a few games with a groin injury, but you resumed training this week. When are you hoping to be back playing in games for Bayern?
I just trained today with the team. Everything went very well. I feel good in shape, and hopefully I can travel with the team this weekend against Paderborn. And we'll see every single day how I'm doing. And yeah.
David, we have seen you play many different positions over the years. Your former manager, Pep Guardiola, said you could play anywhere. If you had to pick one favorite position, what would it be and why?
In the past, I always said I love to play in midfield because you have a lot of ball actions on the field, but I feel very well also on the left side. And yeah, I think you could see the last few years went very well for me on the left side, especially with Frank Ribery, and now also with Kingsley and with Serge, and also with Ivan now. Yeah.
David, you moved to Bayern from Austria more than a decade ago. At the time, you had the chance to join Premier League teams instead. Why did you choose Bayern, and why have you stayed at Bayern for so long?
When I was 16, they invited me at the Sebener Straße here in Munich. Me and my dad, we traveled to Munich a long time ago, and they showed me everything here at the Sebener Straße or Sebener Street. And I really felt in love from the first moment here in Munich. And then this was the moment when I knew I wanted to join this club.
David, I've read that you come from a family of music. What's the story there, and what are your interests in music?
Yeah, my family is very musician. My sister now is a singer. My father was a singer, and also my mom was very into music, and so I grew up in a very musician family, and but I'm not that talented like my.
I was gonna say, are you a singer, David?
No, I don't think so. But I love music. I love music. Music is a really big part in my life and in my family. So I love it.
David, your Bayern Munich teammate, Robert Lewandowski, is off to an incredible start this season, scoring goals. What have you learned about Lewandowski from playing next to him for several years?
A lot. How you can see, he's very, very into this game. He loves this game. He brings a lot of passion every single day in training and also in the weekend. And he's a type of guy he don't want to lose and always want to play. He's always playing. He's like never injured, and he's very, very focused on what he's or what he wants to do. So I learned a lot of him.
David, we've done interviews with your other teammates, Alphonso, Davies, and Chris Richards, who've gone to Bayern from MLS, and they said you have been very welcoming to them since they arrived. How do you think Davies and Richards are doing as they adjust in Germany?
And they are doing very well. Both of them are very talented, and they improve a lot, especially in the last couple months or the last year. And it's nice to see how they grow up, and then I'm just trying to help them to feel well, also in Germany or in Munich. and also, of course, at the team. And but they're doing very well.
Well, David Alaba, we have enjoyed watching you for many years. It's an honor to have you on our show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
For this week's social media check-in, we're checking in on MLS veteran Chris Wondolowski, who spent his first red card suspension in his 15-year career going absolutely nuts in the stands for this team. Check this out.
And Danielle, you said it would be great to get... There he is. He can't get it off quick enough. Come on, son. He's got two shirts on. Danielle, you said it would be great to get Danny Houston.
Wanda was clearly having a good time here. Listen, I like the fact that he took his shirt off and, he wasn't as ripped as I thought he was going to be, but I like it.
I felt bad when he was having a hard time getting his shirt off, but like there's actually a really cool tradition about this in MLS. I go back to Christian Gomez with DC United one time, was in the stands beating the drum with the crowd, the hardcore fans. And so there's something cool that happens every once in a while. And that's not an act, it wasn't by Gomez, it's not by Wondo either. That guy brought the intensity that we see every week from him in the penalty box in front of the goal to the stands. Now, unfortunately for him, they ended up losing the game, so that was not great, but really cool moment just to see.
I call for MLS to do this on every player that gets suspended. They have to do that.
Now it's time for our Games of the Week. Luis Miguel, what's yours?
My game of the week is this Saturday's matchup between Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid, the Madrid derby. Here's why. Well, listen, to begin with, La Liga has started very weirdly. There is no super leader right now. Yes, Real Madrid is playing a little better, but when it comes to a derby, specifically the Madrid derby, specifically in this situation, two teams who are still trying to reconfigure their own identities because Cristiano Ronaldo leaving on one side and obviously on the other side, Joao Felix trying to be that new face after Antoine Griezmann. This is going to be, the first example of what we can expect from a real heated rivalry. I've always enjoyed this one just because you're guaranteed at least 5 yellow cards. But this is going to be, I think, strategically as well interesting because obviously we know what Diego Simeone brings with Atletico Madrid, that high press, non-stop physicality. And we'll see if these young players, Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, who scored a great goal for Real Madrid midweek, we'll see if they can put up with it. But it's going to be an interesting one for sure.
My game of the week is this Monday when Manchester United faces off against Arsenal. Here's why I think you should tune in. It's Man United Arsenal at Old Trafford.
It's a classic.
Yeah, it's a game that I have a lot of memories associated with the late 90s, early 2000s, Sir Alex Ferguson's great teams against Arsene Wenger's great teams, Roy Keane against Patrick Vieira.
Michael saving it, Ryan Giggs running.
Such a great individual rivalry that they made a movie about a couple years ago that people should check out. But this game, present tense, is two teams in different places than they were in the early 2000s. And I think they're both going to fight this year to get even in the top 6 in Man United's situation, and Arsenal's going to have to fight to be in the top 4, and I think they're still trying to find their way a little bit. I'm kind of curious about Arsenal's lineup heading into this game. They've really not wanted to put all of their firepower out together when they're on the road, and here's a situation. They're going to be away. Will we see Lacazette and Pepe and Aubameyang out there at the same time? I think Emery doesn't want to do that. He obviously didn't do that at Liverpool. But I think in this situation, go for it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
And see what you can get out of them, because I don't think the mystique that we used to see at Old Trafford is there anymore. And I think this is a game Arsenal can win.
I think this is the time for Unai Emery. I'm completely in agreement where he needs to say, you know what, we are going all out and I'm throwing everything that I have.
Joining us now is our old friend, Luis Omar Tapia, who broadcasts UEFA Champions League games for TUDN. He's been doing Champions League for 25 years. My friend, thanks for coming back on the show.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been a while, so maybe we should make this call a little bit more often, no?
Let's do it. I'd like that. First off, as a loyal reader of your Twitter feed, at Luis Omar Tapia, I saw that you think Lionel Messi is the best player in the world, but not the best player of last season. Now, he won his 6th FIFA World Player of the Year award this week. Why do you think that?
Well, first, I think that the season that Barcelona had, it was good for Spain. But at the end, they end up losing to a team in Champions League that ends up being the champion of the European tournament. And then that same team has the best defender, central defender in the world. He was the best central defender, the defender in the English Premier League. And he made it to a final, to a new continental tournament, which was the Nations League with Holland, even though that they lost, but he made it. And I think if we take all that in consideration, only the fact that the playing of the tournaments that Messi and Van Dijk did, I think Van Dijk accomplished more than Lionel Messi did, because in Copa America, Argentina didn't do very good, and he couldn't accomplish what everybody wants from him, to win a title with Argentina, even though that he won the Spanish League and the Copa del Rey. But remember one thing, also we have to take in consideration how much and how good did you do in any of these finals. And I think in Copa del Rey, Messi was in the field, but he was not at the game because he never showed up.
Pandita, hermano, great to have you on the show. Let's stick with Barcelona specifically. Okay. Let's stick with Barcelona specifically. With Lionel Messi suffering a muscle injury, he's probably not going to play this weekend. It's not as bad as first feared, but he's most definitely out against Getafe on Saturday, and a doubt for Inter Milan in the Champions League. How do you see Barcelona this season, and is Ernesto Valverde under any pressure right now?
Well, I'll answer you the second part. I think Valverde has been under pressure since the season started because the team doesn't look good. Two, yesterday we received a report, the medical report from Barcelona about Lionel Messi, and his injury, it will probably take about 15 days for him to come back and train with the team. So maybe you can add up another week, perhaps maybe 22 days before he can even play the next game. So counting that they're playing this weekend, again, a very physical team in the Spanish league as Getafe, they're right now, if we add up the statistics about yellow cards, fouls, and all that, Getafe, it's on top of the chart. And they can't put Messi in one of these games. And the following game is against Inter. And we know how the Italian teams play every time they go to Spain. They're very also physical. Their tackles, they go right to their feet. And we have experienced that in the past when Italian teams play against Barcelona. So I don't think Messi is going to be this weekend in the Spanish league. And also, I don't think he's going to play at home against Inter, just because Messi did not have a very good preseason. Remember, he was the last player coming in. And I think his physical condition, his age, every time he has a muscle injury, he's not 22, 23, 24 years old anymore. So he needs more time to get better, to heal. And I think that's one of the biggest problems, that his injuries are muscle injury, and it's because the lack of a proper preseason that he had with the club.
Luis, Omar, Champions League match day 2 is next week. The marquee game on Wednesday is probably Barcelona-Inter. The marquee game on Tuesday, probably Tottenham Hotspur against Bayern Munich. What do you think we will see in this game?
Well, if I have to place a chip on one of these two clubs, I will probably go with Bayern Munich because of the experience that they have, and because it has a very strong base of players that they've been together for some time. I think Tottenham still has a lot of work to do. It's shown in the past few games that there's still something going on within the club, and they have a great future. The problem is that I see is that they didn't bring enough talent with experience so that they can compete with Bayern, with City, with Real Madrid, with Barcelona to this level. So I believe that Bayern Munich will have an edge just because of the experience that they have, with the difference with Tottenham players.
Panda, Manchester City is the defending Premier League champion, but Pep Guardiola is still searching for his ultimate goal, to win the Champions League with Manchester City. How far do you think they can go this season in the Champions League?
I think he has a 4-year deal now with City, but it's been 7 years since Pep Guardiola hasn't lift the cup. You know what's funny, and it makes me laugh every time a journalist at a press conference asks him a question about if he's obligated to win the Champions League, and he says it's always, no, I'm here to win the league. Well, when you have a coach that has spent over $1 billion in the past 4 or 5 years, whether at Bayern Munich or now at Manchester City, it means that you're looking for something bigger than just the Carabao Cup, the League Cup, or just the EPL Championship. You need to win a Champions League. You need to bring to the fans, even though a lot of people says, no, we only care about the EPL. No, I don't think so. So I think he's at the edge of that he is under the pressure that he needs to win this Champions League, because otherwise I think he's going to have a new job next year, or he's going to have some time of vacation. But I've always said that in order for Pep Guardiola to win again a Champions League trophy, there's only one man that can help him, and it's Messi. So maybe at the end of the season, the Messi can break out of his contract in June. Maybe he can kind of spend another 300-400 million euros and bring Messi so he can win the Champions League.
Well, Barcelona needs the money apparently right now, right? So
they do. They do.
By the way, you are well known for the creative nicknames that you have given to players over the years. Which is the nickname that you are the most proud of, and how did you come up with that nickname?
Well, there's a list of about 450 nicknames that I've created, and I think the top 3, I'll give you the top 2. Number 2 is Yar Binks for Ronaldinho when he played at PSG. When he came to PSG, he had the long tail, and the reason is because every time he scored a goal, he would celebrate like this. Remember, and shake his head. So Yar Binks, he used to do the same thing, and every time he was happy at a Star Wars movie. But the next one, I think it was very catchy from day one. It was Zinedine Zidane. In one of the plays that he did Real Madrid against Deportivo La Coruña, at La Coruña, he grabbed the ball and he did the Sisu roulette, and Mauro Silva and Donato and all these guys, they went flying and they couldn't stop him. And then Zidane scored the goal. And at that point, the night before, I have seen the movie Harry Potter. So that moment he scored the goal, the first thing that came to my mind was, after yelling the goal, I said, "Goal by Harry Potter." So, and he knows that I call him that. A lot of these players, they know that I have nicknames for them. So, and I think the top 2, it's Harry Potter for Zinedine Zidane and Yar Binks for Ronaldinho.
I like Yaya Binks. That's my favorite. Panda, last year I wrote about TUDN. Last year was Univision, now TUDN, and the tremendous coverage for the Champions League as they represent not just the Spanish-speaking audience, but also the soccer international audience in North America. How do you like working for the network, and what's new this season as TUDN takes on the second year of the Champions League?
I spent 15 years working for ESPN. I spent 9 years working for Fox. And now this is my 6th year working for Univision TUDN. At one time, when I used to live in Connecticut, I told my daughters that they were about 10, 12 years old, and my wife, and I said, one day my dream is to work for Univision. And dreams comes true in this country when you search for something that you really want. And I'm very happy of being here. This is where I wanted to be. And when I was offered the opportunity to be here, Juan Carlos Rodriguez, the president of the network, is the one that called me, and we had lunch. And then, without a question, when he said, "Would you like to come?" Before he even said, "Will you?" I said, "Yes." So after that, everything was easy. So we have grown a lot, very fast. I think since I've worked now and with the three top most important networks in sports, in Spanish, in the American continent, I can say that I'm very proud of, because I was born in Chile. I have the opportunity of broadcasting the Mexican League, the Mexican National League, the U.S. national team, all this type of events that we cover, not only for the United States, but also for Mexico. And like I said, we have grown so much, and our audience also has grown, because remember that at one point, a lot of people criticized our network because they said Univision is too Mexican. Well, now we're not. We are a family. We are Latinos from different parts of the continent. We all have different accent, and our approach was to reach all the Latino within the United States, and I think we've done that. All the events and all the product that we have, it's through the expansion of all the platforms that we can reach everyone. And to do that, we cannot eliminate the Anglo brothers and sisters in the world of soccer. So we are now broadcasting almost everything in English through our platform. So there's a lot more things that we intend to do for the future. But our main goal is to make sure that our audience is satisfied with everything that we do, from every show, from every newscast, for every game, and that the talents are well prepared to continue to make sure that this company grows deeper and deeper in the world of soccer and sports in the United States.
Well, I'll tell you what, due to the quality of your coverage of Champions League, due to the number of games that are available that you guys are doing, I watch TUDN for all of my Champions League stuff. So thanks so much again.
Do you watch it in English or in Spanish, though?
What's that?
Do you watch it in English or in Spanish?
No, I watch it in Spanish.
Él habla español,
Good.
No.
That's why the rating keeps going up.
La próxima vez vamos a hacerlo en español, ¿no?
That's good. That's good.
Thanks so much for joining us.
No, thank you. All the best.
And now for our parting shots. This week, Rachel Bachman of the Wall Street Journal wrote an important story about the revenue produced by the FIFA Women's World Cup and the nature of bad information being spread by media with an agenda. Earlier this year, a writer for Forbes named Mike Ozanian wrote a column saying that FIFA's prize money for the Women's World Cup, which most recently was 1/13 of that for the Men's World Cup, was perfectly fine because the Women's World Cup only produced $131 million in revenue, and he argued the women's prize money was actually a higher percentage of that $131 million than the men's percentage of Men's World Cup revenues. Quote, "The pay disparity is justified," he wrote. There's only one problem, as Bachman found. Forbes' $131 million figure for Women's World Cup revenue was completely erroneous, and FIFA confirmed that it doesn't actually have any way of knowing how much revenue the Women's World Cup produces because it sells those TV rights as part of a package with the Men's World Cup. But that erroneous $131 million figure popped up in a lot of places, as you can find out doing a simple Google search. It was used by legions of the Bro Brigade on social media as evidence that Women's World Cup prize money is just fine the way it is. The wrong figure was also cited by ESPN, The Washington Post, Fox Sports, The Chicago Tribune, and many other media outlets. And the incorrect figure was even cited by U.S. Soccer in its quixotic lobbying effort of D.C. lawmakers on its claims that it pays the U.S. women actually more than the men, which is heavily disputed. After the Wall Street Journal started looking into the wrongly reported figure, retractions were issued by U.S. Soccer and Forbes. Now FIFA needs to do a much better job pinpointing how much revenue the Women's and Men's World Cups actually produce. For a long time, the Men's World Cup revenues released by FIFA have been too high, since they have included money that has actually been going toward the Women's World Cup. And FIFA most certainly needs to be more clear about how it actually decides the prize money figures that it comes up with for the Men's and Women's World Cups. The next Women's World Cup will have prize money of $60 million compared to $440 million for the men. And if you could believe it, the prize money gap is actually growing, not narrowing. Finally, for the bro brigade out there that thinks that if FIFA and US Soccer provide equal pay, it also means NWSL players will want equal club salaries to the men, that's erroneous too. FIFA and US Soccer are non-profit organizations that get huge tax write-offs as a result and are charged with growing the sport for everyone, men and women. Professional teams, clubs, are for-profit companies. If you don't understand that fundamental difference, you just don't get it.
Well said, my friend. And that, to me, the last part of your shot is what people need to understand. You have to stop making the comparison between for-profit companies who are specifically there to grow their own infrastructure, their own revenue, as opposed to FIFA, US Soccer, non-for-profit organizations that are there, as you said, to help the growth of the game. The gender that you are is not the determinant factor here. You should help both.
Plus, FIFA and its national associations that are members of it spent 5 decades outlawing women's soccer from 1920 to around 1970, preventing women's soccer from developing and actually getting to a point where it was producing more revenues. 5 decades. So that has a huge impact on all of this as well.
Very good point. This week, gamers rejoice as EA Sports FIFA 20 makes its much anticipated official release on Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. As a gamer myself, I've played it, and it's great, and fans will appreciate the new additions, features, advanced commentary, and its realistic appeal. But this parting shot is not a review of the game itself, but rather the power of FIFA 20, as well as its competitor Pro Evolution Soccer, and how through the years it has played a major role in growing the North American soccer fan. In 2016, when I was still with The Guardian, I conducted a number of interviews with avid FIFA gamers alongside doing my own research and wrote an article on how the game's influence and how, thanks to FIFA's popularity, soccer in America has benefited as a result of it. North America is one of the fastest growing markets for the franchise, and it coincides with the growth of the sport in the States. Several polls and studies have shown that Americans who see themselves as soccer fans have grown consistently in the last 10 years, most notably 12 to 17-year-olds. And during this same period, FIFA's popularity has also increased. My piece, therefore, which was 4 years ago, by the way, so the numbers have almost likely increased, showed a direct correlation between the video game's popularity and how the US soccer fan, specifically the young fan, owes its love for the game, partly because of FIFA 20 or FIFA 19 or what have you. So my point is that there are many soccer fans in the US who have no affinity to the video game and vice versa, of course. But what can't be argued is how FIFA 20, and to a lesser degree Pro Evolution, has helped create a new breed of soccer fan. One who sees the beauty of playing, watching, and attending real matches by learning from its virtual alternative.
Couple things I would say here. The most brilliant thing FIFA ever did was to put its name on this video game, because the FIFA brand name, due to all the corruption scandals over many years now, kind of should be mud, and yet because of this game, you have so many people out there who say, I love FIFA.
Yeah, it's become a different meaning now. You talk to a 13 or 14-year-old kid and you say FIFA, they're not thinking about the organization. They're thinking about the game. And the point of what I'm trying to say is that, I mean, I know so many people who had zero interest in soccer, and it's because of this video game that they have become an affinity to it. And because of the detailed perspective of the video game, forget Infantino, forget the best awards, forget anything. This game has been the door that has opened them to the beautiful game.
The other thing I remember is I did a story back when I covered basketball in the early 2000s where I spent time with NBA players who were totally into video games, and I spent an afternoon with this NBA player named Bo Outlaw who loved the FIFA soccer game, the video game, and knew all the players' names, not because he actually watched soccer, but because he played the video game.
1000%.
And he sung the praises of Luis Enrique. I don't think he'd ever actually seen Luis Enrique play.
Yeah, listen, we're not going to go too much into this, but I've talked to kids who can tell me specific strategies of teams, like how Guardiola plays or how Klopp plays, because of FIFA, not because they watch it.
That is it for this week's episode of Planet Football, episode 88. Thanks so much for joining us. Catch us next week and every week after that on Thursdays on SI TV, YouTube, or SI.com. It's free globally. Also, check out our Planet Football podcast that comes out on Mondays. Luis Miguel and I discussing the weekend in soccer, and on Thursdays with an interview guest. It's always interesting. Thanks for watching.